Vážení účastníci, vážení hosté, vážení přátelé koheze, dovolte mi vás srdečně přivítat na 11. evaluační konferenci Národního orgánu pro koordinaci, a to s tématem Data v akci, evaluace jako klíč k efektivní kohezní politice po roce 2028. Já jsem Klára Kracíková, jsem ředitelkou odboru strategického rámce fondů EU, ale dnes vás budu provázet tím dopoledním blokem, takže si střihnu roli moderátora, nejsem v tom kovaná, tak prosím buďte schovývaví. Na úvod mi dovolte několik organizačních informací. Po úvodním slovu, které proběhne v českém jazyce, přepneme do angličtiny. A celý ten panel bude tlumočený, takže pokud někdo potřebujete, teď je ještě čas, kdy si můžete dojít pro sluchátka. Čímž rovnou i děkuji našim skvělým tlumočníkům. A na úvod mi dovolte trochu k tomu, co vlastně nás dneska čeká a jak to bude probíhat. První dopolední panel se zaměří na budoucnost evaluací a evidence-based přístupu v kohezní politice. Budeme diskutovat, jak legislativní změny a posun ke strategickému na důkazech založenému rozhodování mění očekávání a praktické využití evaluací na národní a evropské úrovni. Zvláštní pozornost pak budeme věnovat tomu, jak lze lépe využívat výsledky evaluací právě pro to strategické řízení a jaké výzvy přináší ten přechod od modelu založeného na nákladech, tedy to, co známe nyní, k tomu modelu založenému na výsledcích. Druhý panel se zaměří na otázku, co skutečně funguje a v jakých podmínkách v rámci podpory konkurenceschopnosti a konvergence. Naši přední odborníci představí výsledky regionálních analýz veřejných výdajů a jejich dopadů na rozvojové trajektorie regionu a budeme diskutovat, jak efektivně cílit veřejné výdaje do zaostalých regionů a pak věčná otázka, zda je možné podporovat zároveň konkurenceschopnost České republiky a přitom i zajistit konvergenci regionu. Co se týče odpoledního programu, tak ten nabídne dva paralelní bloky. První z nich je nazvaný Inspirace ze zahraničí a představí zkušenosti Evropské komise s ex post a midterm evaluací fondů EU, estonský model propojení evaluací se státním rozpočtem a také výsledky studie Světové banky zaměřené na podporu inovací a podnikání v České republice. Ten druhý blok bude Inspirace Česká republika a zaměří se na konkrétní příklady evaluací v oblasti vzdělávání, sociální práce a regionálního rozvoje. A v pozdním odpoledním bloku se pak účastníci mohou těšit na blok věnovaný budoucnosti evaluací. Bude představena případová studie využití generativní umělé inteligence při navrhování evaluace implementace partnerství v Polsku. A paralelně s tím proběhne workshop, který bude zaměřený na strategický foresight a jeho propojení s evaluačním procesem, kde budou diskutovány možnosti efektivního kombinování foresightu s tradičními evaluačními metodami. Dámy a pánové, nyní mi dovolte přivítat na pódiu paní státní tajemnici, nejvyšší ženu Ministerstva pro místní rozvoj v nepřítomnosti pana ministra, paní Martinu Postupovou, která přednese úvodní slovo.
Dobrý den všem. Nejvyšší rozhodně ne co do vzrůstu, ale občas to doháním podpatky, takže názorná ukázka. Navážu na milou a z mého pohledu velmi oceněnou paní ředitelku. Já jsem ráda, že tady máme takové státní zaměstnance a protože jsem státní tajemnice, je, myslím, mojí povinností oceňovat ty státní zaměstnance a představené, kteří jsou takhle výkonní a mají takovýhle impact na ostatní zaměstnance a na celou státní službu. Takže děkuji paní ředitelce a jejímu panu vrchnímu řediteli, panu Stanislavu Schneidrovi. Děkuji tobě, Stando, také. A teď už to avizované úvodní slovo. Vážené dámy a vážení pánové, milé kolegyně, milí kolegové, máme před sebou 11. ročník evaluační konference a ráda bych vás skutečně co nejsrdečněji jménem Ministerstva pro místní rozvoj, ale také pana ministra Petra Kulhánka na této konferenci přivítala. Vaše účast, a to v hojném počtu, jak vidím, je skutečně důkazem, že evaluace, evidence-based policy a vůbec zkoumání dat je v centru zájmu nejenom vás, ale i státní služby, státní správy a napříč celou Evropou, nebo Evropskou unii, chcete-li. Na úvod mi dovolte několik osobních poznámek velmi stručně. Moje osobní profesní kariéra je více než 20 let spojena se státní správou, chcete-li posledních 10 let spojena se státní službou, protože více jak 10 let tady máme nový zákon o státní službě. Za tu dobu jsem měla možnost skutečně sledovat vývoj přístupu k evaluacím, k práci s daty od toho více formálního až formalizovaného nebo formalistického přístupu, tedy že data potřebujeme, nevíme, co s nimi, evaluace potřebujeme, protože nám to možná ukládá Evropská unie, až po ten přístup současný, který bych řekla je mimořádně vyspělý a sice, že prostě potřebujeme evaluovat pro budoucnost a proto, abychom uměli dobře rozhodovat, efektivně rozhodovat a strategicky řídit. I proto téma té letošní konference Data v akci, evaluace jako klíč k efektivní kohezní politice 2028+, je mimořádně aktuální a řekla bych trefný. Nacházíme se v období, kdy význam evaluací v kohezní politice, navazuje na předřečnici paní ředitelku, nabývá zcela nové dimenze. Evropská unie i Česká republika čelí výzvám, které nejen, že potřebují, abychom efektivně využívali veřejné prostředky, ale abychom měli tu už avizovanou schopnost rozhodovat na základě otevřených dat a na základě důkazů, nikoli pouze na základě domněnek a pocitů. Přestože ani empatii nemůžeme opomíjet. Právě evaluace je tím klíčovým nástrojem, který nám umožňuje nejen hodnotit dopady našich politik, ale také průběžně zlepšovat a přizpůsobovat aktuálním potřebám společnosti. V uplynulých letech jsme byli svědky základních změn v přístupu k řízení evropských fondů. Nový regulační rámec 2028+, a věřte, že je to předmětem opravdu debat v České republice, klade důraz na výkonnostní rámec, výkon samotný, výsledkově orientované řízení a strategické ukotvení evaluace v celém cyklu veřejných politik. Považuji to za mimořádně přínosné. To sebou přináší nejen nové příležitosti, ale i odpovědnost za to, jak s výsledky evaluací naložíme. I proto dnešní konference. Zároveň mi dovolte připomenout několik klíčových principů, které by měly být podle mého názoru a zjevně i podle názoru mých velmi šikovných kolegů základem moderní evaluace. Prvním z těch principů je otevřenost. Co si představit pod tímto principem? Otevřenost k novým metodám, k novým technologiím i vůči kritické zpětné vazbě. Myslím si, že i AI se možná bude patřit. To jsou ty nové technologie. Druhým principem je spolupráce. Evaluace nemůže být izolovanou činností jenom několika expertů, několika jednotek nebo izolovaných útvarů v rámci služebních úřadů, ale musí být výsledkem dialogu mezi tvůrci politik, implementátory té politiky, akademickou sférou, občanskou společností v nejširším slova smyslu. Třetím principem je využitelnost. Výsledky evaluací musí být srozumitelné, dostupné a skutečně využívané při rozhodování na všech úrovních. Když to shrnu, ty tři principy, prvním z nich otevřenost, mějme otevřenou mysl i k novým technologiím. Druhým principem je spolupráce, nenechme si to pro sebe, to, co jsme zjistili, to, co děláme. A třetím je to, co děláme, aby bylo využitelné, tedy využitelnost. Dovolila jsem si toto stručné shrnutí. I Ministerstvo pro místní rozvoj dlouhodobě podporuje evaluace a rozvoj analytických evaluačních kapacit. A to nejenom proto, protože tady máme takzvaný NOC. V rámci našeho rezortu, který v současné době čítá 915 takzvaných tabulkových míst, byť nejsou všechna obsazena, ale troufnu si tvrdit, že patříme mezi ty velká ministerstva v rámci České republiky, tak i v rámci našeho rezortu máme několik útvarů a kolegů v řádu ovšem desítek, kteří se zabývají evaluacemi. Například tady máme evaluační jednotku, oddělení evaluací, konkrétně pro evropské fondy. Máme oddělení analýz a hodnocení dopadů regulace. A vznikají nové útvary a přicházejí noví kolegové, respektive my stojíme o to, aby přicházeli noví kolegové, kteří se evaluací, analýzami a daty zabývají. Považujeme to za jednu z klíčových priorit našeho ministerstva, ale i státní služby. Všechny tyto útvary nebo i jednotlivci, naši kolegové, zásadním způsobem přispívají k tomu, že evaluace a analytika nebo analýzy jsou pevnou součástí našeho rozhodování a strategického řízení. A věřte nebo ne, skutečně v těchto aktivitách potřebujeme posilovat. MMR využívá analytiku a evaluace nejen při řízení evropských fondů, ale i pro zlepšování vlastního fungování. Protože já jsem státní tajemnice, z čích úst byste to měli slyšet, než právě z těch mých. Pravidelně, každé 2 roky, realizuje zdejší ministerstvo rozsáhlé šetření spokojenosti zaměstnanců, jehož výsledky potom vstupují do přípravy klíčových výstupů, například v rámci projektu Smart MMR. Projekt Smart MMR byl zařazen, respektive zaměřen na modernizaci, digitalizaci vnitřních procesů ministerstva, na zvyšování efektivity a kvality služeb a podporu inovací v řízení úřadu. Zmíním jednu velmi bohulibou aktivitu. Máme tady speciální systém, ve kterým naši kolegové mohou svoje inovativní podněty sdělovat a my se jimi potom pravidelně zabýváme. A ty, které lze realizovat, tak se snažíme realizovat v nějakém přiměřeném čase. I to byl výsledek tohoto projektu Smart MMR. Za tento projekt v roce 2023 získalo Ministerstvo pro místní rozvoj ocenění, které oceňuje úsilí všech při realizaci inovativních změn v rámci ministerstva. A tím nekončím, pokud je o úspěchy Ministerstva pro místní rozvoj. Zároveň Ministerstvo pro místní rozvoj bylo prvním ministerstvem, které implementovalo systém řízení kvality a v současnosti patří mezi 3 ministerstva, oceněná za vynikající implementaci požadavků metodického pokynu pro řízení kvality ve služebních úřadech do praxe. Toto ocenění, musím říct, jsem osobně mohla ještě předchozímu vedení, předchozím kolegům zdejšího ministerstva předávat, protože jsem předtím působila v jiné pozici, kde jsme taková ocenění udělovali a hodnotili jsme kvalitu služebních úřadů. Pokud jde o sekci pro státní službu, což je ten nejvyšší útvar, který řídí státní službu napříč celou Českou republikou, v současné době v jeho čele stojí doktor Jindřich Frič, nejvyšší státní tajemník, tak i sekce pro státní službu mimořádným způsobem apeluje a posiluje a sama praktikuje důraz na evaluaci, data a analýzy. Nebudu zastírat, že i v těchto aktivitách nějakým způsobem jsem zapojena já, respektive naši kolegové. Významným krokem v tomto směru bylo v roce 2024 realizované celostátní šetření s názvem Pohled úřednice, pohled úředníka, které sekce pro státní službu připravila, realizovala a v odezvě na toto dotazníkové šetření získala odpovědi 21 000 státních zaměstnanců, což tvoří, řekněme, že 30% z nich. Už jenom to číslo a to, kolik lidí se dotazníkového šetření zúčastnilo, kompletními odpověďmi vypovídá o tom, že to dotazníkové šetření bylo úspěšné. A jaké byly závěry toho průzkumu pohled úředníka nebo pohled úřednice? Tak za prvé, naši státní zaměstnanci jsou mimořádně motivovaní v tom, že pracují pro stát. To klíčovou informací, kterou jsme získali, bylo, že smysluplná práce ve veřejných službách, ve veřejné nebo státní službě, chcete-li, je to, co je dlouhodobě drží při tom, aby pracovali pro stát a poskytovali svoje služby v rámci zákona o státní službě. Chci to vytknout před závorku, protože smysluplnost práce je, myslím, jedním z klíčových témat, o kterém mimo jiné hovoříme mezi státními tajemníky, respektive personalisty nebo odborníky na HR. Zdá se, že smysl je to klíčové a podstatné. Nebudu se vracet na začátek svého projevu, který se týkal současných hodnot a výzev, které máme v rámci České republiky, ale i v rámci Evropské unie. Myslím, že o tom bude ještě řeč. Zároveň jsme ale zjistili, že státní zaměstnance neodměňujeme adekvátně. Že v tomhle musí Česká republika zásadním způsobem přehodnotit svůj názor na to, jak státní zaměstnance odměňujeme a jestli systém, který v současné době máme, skutečně není přežitý a neměli bychom ho modernizovat. I v tom už jsou učiněny určité kroky, nicméně je potřeba mít i velikou politickou podporu. Úřednická, respektive na datech založená analýza proto v současné době k dispozici je. Zároveň státní zaměstnanci v tom pozitivním slova smyslu oceňovali vztahy na pracovištích, kolektivy a týmy, které v rámci státní služby vytváříme. I to jsou informace a data, které jsme získali z toho dotazníkového šetření. Mezi ty slabiny, kromě odměňování státních úředníků, patří, řekněme, že kompetence a zejména ty soft kompetence našich představených, kde musíme tady také napnout cíly. Nebyla to pro nás informace nová, protože stejnou informaci jsme získali od OECD z jejich governance review, které ještě v současné době dnes tedy premiér v demisi, ale tehdy premiér Petr Fiala představoval na velké konferenci. Víme, že v těchto aktivitách, respektive v pozici a v síle představených, musíme našim představeným ještě pomáhat jim v tom se rozvíjet a ještě lépe upevňovat jednak vztahy s představenými a takový způsob práce, aby lépe dosahovali svých výsledků a cílů. Zároveň v tom dotazníkovém šetření se ukázalo, že máme určitou slabinu mezi výkonem a participací na těch výsledcích, na politikách, kteří naši státní zaměstnanci vytváří. I v tom určitě budeme aktivity posilovat. Podpora analytické a evaluační práce, která navazuje na všechna ta dotazníková další šetření, která provádíme, se promítá logicky i do institucionálního rozvoje státní správy. V sekci pro státní službu, mimo jiné i na základě dotazníkového šetření pohled úřednice, pohled úředníka a dalších šetření, která provádějí ostatní služební úřady, vznikl nový útvar, který se jmenuje Odbor strategií analýz pro státní službu. Jeho úkolem je koordinace strategických projektů, rozvoj analytických kapacit, příprava koncepčních materiálů a metodická podpora služebním úřadům. Říkám to všechno proto, že pokud sekce pro státní službu v čele s nejvyšším státním tajemníkem Jindřichem Jakličem podporuje evaluace, práci s daty, analytickou práci, tak my, jako jeden z podřízených služebních úřadů, nesmíme zůstat samozřejmě pozadu. A budeme mezi prvními, kteří v těch evaluacích a datech budou vynikat. Kromě toho, že vynikáme, protože tady máme NOK, my díky tomu, že v podstatě i díky tlaku Evropské unie a Evropské komise musíme ty evaluace dlouhodobě provádět a dlouhodobě přemýšlet o tom, jak nám ty výsledky, jak nám ta data ovlivňují to, kam máme potom směřovat, do jakých priorit a do jakých aktivit i finanční prostředky Evropské unie. Na závěr mi dovolte několik osobních přání nejenom pro dnešní konferenci, ale vůbec do budoucna, pokud je o práci s daty a evaluace. Dnešní konference bude určitě velmi dělná. Získáte mnoho odborných poznatků, které si vzájemně vyměníte a kolegové vám připravili skvělá témata. Bude také prostorem, a už v současné době jsem to viděla i v předsálí, pro navázání nových kontaktů, nové spolupráce mezi kolegy. Věřím, že společně nalezneme cesty, jak ještě více propojit evaluace s rozhodovacími procesy, jak posílit jejich využití při tvorbě strategií pro výsledky naší práce, aby byly efektivnější a skutečně, aby byly přínosné pro občany České republiky i celé Evropské unie. Zvláště ve víru výzev, které v současné době sledujeme v České republice i v Evropské unii. Vám všem přeji skutečně naplněný den, přínosný den, abyste si odnesli to, co očekáváte, a pokud ne, abyste nám dali dobrou zpětnou vazbu na dnešní konferenci, protože i to je věc, která se týká evaluace a je s tím samozřejmě spojena. Věřím, že tato konference 11. v pořadí nebude poslední, ale že bude následována dalšími neméně úspěšnými. Děkuji vám za pozornost a skutečně přeji úspěšný den.
Děkuji paní státní tajemnici. Po všech těch superlativech doufám, že teď dostojíme těm očekáváním, které jsou znešeny. Jak bylo avizováno, přepneme nyní do anglického jazyka. So Ladies and gentlemen, let me switch to English for the next couple of minutes. It's a great honor for us to welcome Mr. Peter Berkowitze, the Director for Policy at the Directorate General for Regional and Urban Policy of the European Commission, who will deliver the keynote address. Although Mr. Berkowitze could not join us in person, we truly appreciate that he has made time in his busy schedule to connect with us online and share his insights at the start of our conference. Peter Berkowitze, the director of DG REGIO, is responsible for policy development, economic analysis, evaluation, the European semester, financial instrument, and legal matters in the field of EU regional policy. And previously, he led the Smart and Sustainable Growth Unit, coordinating work on climate change, innovation, the digital economy, and the Just Transition Fund. So, Mr. Berkowitze, online floor is yours.
Right, well, thank you very much. I trust you can hear me.
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. Well, first of all, my apologies. I had hoped to be able to come, but as you have probably seen from the press, things are quite busy at the moment as regards to the future proposals for the MFF. So all my apologies, but I'm also delighted to be able to speak to you online, to share some thinking on the future. I think these types of initiatives organised by the Czech Ministry for Regional Development and the National Coordination Authority are extremely important because they're opportunities to discuss evaluation and its role in policy making at a time where we are digesting the last period and we're thinking about the new one. Now, you're probably aware that we recently adopted and published the evaluations, the ex-post evaluations, the midterm evaluation of the 2014-20 period and the 21-27 period. And I just want to bring you some of the key messages that came out of these. I mean, these as all of you in the room know, I mean, doing evaluation is a long-term effort. And this was a culmination of several years of work by the Commission staff and a number of external experts. And of course, it benefited from the evaluation work which was being done by the member states. And what I want to first of all focus a little bit on is the methodologies and the work that we undertook to pull together the package. I think this is perhaps the most sophisticated package that we have actually put together to evaluate the policy. And I think that the other main point is that we've seen a kind of convergence between the work of evaluators and the work of the academic community. I think the first element which I would highlight here is that we have a much more disciplined approach to the definition of the theory of change. Because the channels in which our policy operates are particularly complicated, and there are many different contextual elements that need to be taken into account, the different policies and the different funding streams. The second thing, and this thing is something which I really would like to emphasize because it is very important in terms of having an objective judgment of the effectiveness of the policy, is that we've had a much wider and thorough use of counterfactual methodologies. And you know, given the specificities of our policy, where funding is available to all regions and the amount of resources depends very much on GDP and in technical terms, a lot of issues of endogeneity. We've had to use rather advanced quantitative techniques. And this, I think, is a main theme that I want to pass today, is that, you know, we need to have careful design of evaluation methodologies to take account of the specificities of our policy. We commissioned a number of studies, and we did what we have done in the past, which is regression, discontinuity designs, but we've also tried more innovative approaches, synthetic control, and also a machine learning approach. So we have a lot of tools, and we think that by triangulating a lot of different results, we get a better picture of what has actually occurred and allows us to make better judgments. And of course, it's not only the theory-based and the counterfactual which are important, but we've used other more traditional tools, qualitative ones like interviews and surveys of stakeholders and case studies, as well as other quantitative techniques. And we have used, in particular, modeling work, our spatial computable general equilibrium model, Romolo, which allows us to look at more complicated issues such as spillovers between regions. Now, that's the methods. What are really the kind of the outcomes that we see of this? Well, I think all of these methods converge in the finding that cohesion policy support has had a positive, significant and sustained effect on EU GDP, on employment and labour productivity. Now, I mean, this is the headline message, but underlying this, all of this work also reveals that the impact of the policy is not always proportional to the amount of resource allocated, and there are significant impact disparities owing to economic, institutional, and administrative characteristics. And this is very important because it indicates that there is scope for improvement, and therefore evaluation can help us identify precisely those areas where perhaps we can do it better in the future. And I think what is important as well is that these results align pretty well with what has been established in the academic literature. And this is a very important message which has come out, is that when we apply proper methodologies and we have good quality data, the majority of studies tend to find that our policy has a positive impact. Now, I think one of the key issues here is microdata. And now I perhaps move into the discussion a bit more of the future. And I think, we're all aware that there is a data revolution going on, that we have new tools, we have new techniques. And in our view, this has to be part of our work on the future. Because the quality of good, the availability of good quality data enhances all the possibilities we have in all of the methods that I mentioned above, and in particular, better data about beneficiaries. This is why in DG REGIO, we have worked very hard to accompany the data that we get from our open data platform, which is transmitted by the member states, with analysis from our Cohesio database. This is pools operation level data provided by the member states and covers the majority of operations for the 21-27 programming period. Although this database is not perfect, it's really allowed us to do a lot of work in order to better understand, in particular, the localization of cohesion policy expenditure. And of course, this is very, very important because we are a place-based policy. And in our view, this element of microdata should really become a cornerstone of the monitoring of our funds. Now, many of the lessons that we drew from doing the evaluation and our work on data over the last few years are contained in the new legal provisions that we have for the next period. We have broad continuity, but there are nuances. So let me quickly run through some of the key points of this. We build on the system of common indicators, but we have sought to adapt them to the new reality of a framework based on milestones and targets. But the important message that I wanted to pass here is that it is important that we try and have continuity in the use of these indicators, simply because it will help us in understanding what we're trying to do, in trying to cost the programs and provide continuity in the work we're doing. The regulation that was being proposed by the Commission, the performance regulation in particular, aims at producing and making available better quality and with higher granularity at the level of operations in the future. And we think that this will improve the possibility for monitoring, but in particular if we're able to link this data to administrative data, this can form the basis for better impact evaluation. And there we're seeing the emergence of many different types of advanced research tools, many based on artificial intelligence applications. Now, I think I mentioned briefly before that we have a system of a shift from an expenditure-based system to a system based on milestones and targets. And clearly this is a challenge, but we think that we have a fantastic source of data in the terms of the implementation of our current programs. And we have to make use of this, because the best way of establishing the basis for costing is to simply look at the costs in the past and then to adjust them. And we're currently undertaking a number of studies to see how we can potentially use the data that we have generated by programs and how to adapt our current monitoring system to the new framework. Now, as regards to the evaluation system itself, there is very, very strong continuity in terms of the approach with the current CPR, both for the member states and for the Commission. Evaluations are set in the framework of the better regulation criteria: effectiveness, efficiency, relevance, coherence, and union added value. And this will be the basis for the ex post. And there is also a proposed midterm evaluation to take stock of implementation, check the relevance of the measures, and to ensure alignment with new priorities. Now, what are potentially some of the little changes that we see in the regulation? Well, I think the first thing is that there is an explicit reference to the use of quantitative techniques, as well as policy learning and experimentation. And I think this is something which really we have to build on, because these types of tools are the basis for, let's say, better judgments about effectiveness, but also better ways of identifying where things need to be improved. And perhaps on this last point, experimentation, I'd like to say a few words about experimental designs. These are really trying to move from the counterfactual type of instrument to even more rigorous types of impact evaluation. And we've been using these for a bit of time through dedicated pilots. And I mean, these are best known as randomized control trials. But in fact, what we have seen is that there are a whole range of different tools and applications of this, which range from very, well, I would say relatively simple applications to really quite large scale classic trials. And for this, we have partnered with the World Bank and provided technical support to managing authorities to engage some resources in experimental projects related to innovation and business support. And most recently, we've had essentially a joint project together with DG Employment to foster experimentation in ERDF and ESF programs together with the World Bank. And we had a very successful recent workshop in Berlin in May of this year, where we had a very interesting discussion of experimental designs. Now, experimental designs and these kind of RCTs have a reputation for being expensive and complicated. But I think the work there with the World Bank and the different managing authorities show that there are ways of doing it which is much less resource intensive and much more practical in terms of shaping very concrete decisions that need to be taken. And in our view, there's a lot of potential possibilities for experimental measures in the future, in particular in relation to the new performance-based system we have. And one of the things that we are reflecting on, and I would encourage you to reflect on as well, is how we could potentially introduce milestones linked to piloting, linked to experiments into national plans. Often in cohesion policy, and policies in general in the EU budget, we decide what we want to do in our programs and then go full out to achieve it immediately. In some cases, it may make sense to perhaps pilot different approaches and then scale up, particularly since, you know, we're talking about periods of 8 to 10 years. And one of the interesting things about this is that it would allow policies and projects to be tested before they are implemented on a large scale. This could increase their effectiveness and ensure cost efficiency. Now, in the new system, you know, the payments for reaching the milestones could provide incentives for member states to engage in experimentation, something which is considered normally to be quite burdensome. And there are there have been, I would say, a few attempts to do this within the national recovery and resilience plans of some member states. But we think that a more structured approach in the future could be helpful. So just to say, this is one concrete way of how evaluation and policy learning could be better integrated in programming in the future framework. And you know, I think we all share the view that we have to find more ways to feed evaluation results into the design of policy in our programs. There are other approaches. I'm not suggesting that these are the only ways of doing it. But I do hope that the conference today can be a valuable opportunity to have a discussion about how we can best make use of evaluation findings to have better policies. And here I'd just like to highlight and thank the Ministry and the National Coordination Authority here, who I think have really been trying to push this forward and have all been from the perspective in Brussels, very much at the forefront of the use of advanced techniques for evaluation, which with many positive outcomes. So just to conclude, I hope that some of the elements I mentioned above, methodologies, data, how to make evaluation more relevant in the context of programming and policy making, will resonate first of all in the panel and more generally in the conference. And this event can also help us cement our common understanding of the role of evaluation in the future of the policy. So I'd like to finish just by thanking the organizers for this opportunity to speak to you today, and I hope you have an excellent conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, for a really deeper insight of the evaluation. And now it's time for you, our guests. So do you wish to ask Peter any questions? And if you do not feel comfy with English, you can ask in Czech and I'll translate for you. Okay,
Speak in English, but my name is Ivana Kirby. I used to work for Czech Ministry and English Ministry and so on. Now I represent the initiative of the partners of civic society to be involved in the preparation for the programming period. I found it really interesting, and as far as my experience, I can say that this time around, the new proposal really is revolutionary. But at the same time, I think it's really interesting, this focus on performance. But at the same time, I noticed that European Court of Auditors is mentioning that there isn't enough data on control and audits of national, the COVID money programs and so on, and that we prepare something new and revolutionary with very positive approach. But at the same time, we don't really have like the list of risks we should concentrate on. So thank you very much.
Would you like me to answer immediately, or are there other questions?
For the moment, it looks it's the only question, so feel free.
Okay. Well. First of all, I could talk for hours on this, but I will try and be brief. It's a very important question. I think the first thing to say is that we have tried to learn the lessons from the implementation of the RRF and to address as well the concerns that the European Court of Auditors has had about its implementation. It was a very big experiment, and I mean, I think there's some clear areas where there needs to be improvement, and in particular, the issue that you point to is correct. Now, we have not proposed the RF model. I think there's a big misunderstanding. Yes to milestones and targets, but a different type of systems. And I would highlight a number of points on that. The first thing is that the RF was implemented in direct management. That is to say, it was directly managed by the Commission in relation, essentially, to national bodies. In the future, it will be managed in shared management. That is to say, it will be built on the existing structures that we have for our programs and the extensive experience we have of implementing them. And for the auditors there, I mean, we will have essentially the key requirements that we had for the existing managing authorities as the basis for what we're doing. So this is the first part of it. The second part of it is that we have clarified in the proposals what is required from the member states and the regions and the managing authority in much more detail. And what we want to do is that we have a system where we do the checking, but we don't do the checking on exactly the same basis. We do the checking on the basis of systems, on the basis of member states' systems. We no longer do the checking or the payment by the Commission on the basis of invoices. I mean, the way I explain it is having to justify every bus ticket. We will no longer have eligibility rules in relation to expenditure. All of these things will be simplifications. The third element, which I would like to highlight, which is very, very important and is linked to the issue of beneficiary data, is that and this is something that the court criticized, is that there was a lack of transparency. And there will be much stronger transparency and building very much on the system that we have for Cohesio, and to provide more information about the beneficiaries, about the operations themselves. So I think our view in the Commission is that we have proposed an alternative which is pretty solid. And of course, we will have to discuss with the Court of Auditors. But the system, the important point is that the system we proposed is not the system of the RRF. It is a system which seeks to address the concerns that the Court has raised. So it's always good to start with audit management control first thing in the morning. It wakes everybody up.
Okay, Peter, thank you very much. I don't see any other questions, so thank you for joining us. We really do appreciate it. And now let's skip to our first panel that will focus on the evolving role of evaluation in the context of new regulatory framework for cohesion post-2028, with a particular emphasis on the performance framework and results-oriented management. This discussion will address how legislative changes and the shift towards strategic, evidence-based decision-making are transforming the expectations and practical use of evaluations at both national and European levels. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to welcome our speakers. On the stage, first of all, Stanislav Schneidr. Please be seated under your picture and a name. Pascal Boijmans. Federico Lucidi. And Siret Soonsein. Stanislav Schneidr is the Director General of the Section for Coordination, the European Funding, International Relations and Tourism here at the Ministry of Regional Development. He has gone 13 years career devoted to the European agenda, both at national and international levels. He has also served at the Czech permanent representation to the EU in Brussels. Pascal Boijmans, head of unit of European Commission, the DG REGIO. He is the head of unit for the Czech Republic and Slovakia at the DG REGIO. Previously, he was the head of unit for administrative capacity building and also Interreg and cross-border cooperation. Federico Lucidi, head of unit for European Commission of DG Employment. He's head of unit for impact assessment, evaluation, monitoring of funds in DG Employment and Social Affairs and Inclusion. And he has also experience on the governance, analysis and evaluation of employment and social policies. And Siret Soonsein, State Shared Service Center of Estonia. Siret is a grant development specialist at the State Shared Service Center, where she coordinates the implementation of the National Recovery and Resilience Plan and develops results-based financing schemes such as non-cost-based financing. And she has more than 7 years of experience in managing EU-funded and national grant programs. Thank you for joining us. And now I'll move to you. Yeah, working. So at the very beginning, I've got a main question that will be common for all of you. So if you could take, let's say, 5 to 10 minutes to answer and share your view to the point. So I believe it's not surprising, but everyone in this conference hall is definitely focused on the new regulatory framework and the implementation of the performance framework. So now I would like to hear from you what impact do you expect this will have on the management, monitoring and evaluation of national and regional plans, if any? And in your view, how will these changes influence the way the results are tracked, reported and used for strategic decision-making at both national and European level? So let's start with the ladies first. So Siret, could you share with us?
Yeah. So okay, it works. Hello, everyone. As said, I am a grant management expert and I work in a State Shared Service Center. And State Shared Service Center is a government agency under the Ministry of Finance. And we basically provide different kind of services to the central government organizations. And grants administration is just one part of our organization. And we fulfill the role of the managing authority in Estonia for structural funds, meaning that I have more practical experience with result-based financing. So yeah, result-based financing is my field of expertise. And as said, I am coordinating the implementation of recovery and resilience plan in Estonia. And we also develop financing not linked to cost schemes. Yeah, when we speak about this financing not linked to cost schemes, then Estonia actually have already 3 adopted schemes under the Article 95 of the CPR. I don't know how familiar you are with CPR and articles or FNLCs, but basically it regulates how the Commission pays to the member states. And the payments are based on fulfilling the conditions or achieving the results. So quite similar to the RRF and also to the new regulatory framework, performance framework, so milestones and targets. These three plans actually, they cover around 30% of the total program volume. We have only one operational program in Estonia. So our first FNLC scheme actually is in the field of education, and it's connected with the educational reform. It develops the curricula. It also includes development of different kind of learning materials, and also it's changing the physical learning environments. But it also includes training the youth sector professionals and educational workers. So it's quite complex scheme, and it falls our first scheme. But two other schemes, actually they fall under, this is under the ESF Plus, and two other schemes, they are under the ERDF. One supports the renovation of apartment buildings, and the other one is related with the construction of really high capacity networks, so broadband scheme. But this is not all. We have three other schemes being negotiated at the moment with the Commission as we are amending our program, and we are doing our midterm review. So, and these three schemes, they are all under the ERDF. One supports the public sector innovation projects. But two other schemes, they are related with new, just included defense investments. So you might say that we have already taken quite strong and straightforward approach to the with the direction to the result-based financing within this current period. And how we have done it, or how we have achieved it, you might ask. I have to start that within our organization, we have dedicated staff. So we have one full-time simplified cost option expert working with us. And we have two full-time result-based experts and FNLC experts. And I am one of them. So it clearly shows that we have, our management has invested resources into having more result-based schemes. And also the uptake of simplification measures and FNLC. I'm saying FNLC, it represents the financing not linked to cost. So this is an abbreviation I will use quite a lot. So the uptake of simplifications and FNLCs is actually one key performance indicator in our organization strategy. And it sets a target that at least 30% of the cohesion policy funds will be covered with those measures. So it's quite high, I think, target. But it shows, that we have taken a direction to decrease the bureaucracy within the system, and also make the grants more user-friendly. So, and how do we monitor, and how do we visualize the data, and how do we monitor the progress and the uptake of the simplifications? For that, we actually use personalized Power BI dashboards, and they give a real-time, really good data for us regarding those. And they also fulfill the goal of making the data visible to the public, and also raise awareness regarding the new approaches and the simplifications. And maybe just a little bit of broader context. So what kind of benefits do we see in result-based schemes? It definitely brings a more stronger focus on the policy goals. And we see that the administrative costs are much, much lower. So basically you need so much less staff dealing with those kind of schemes and also making the payments regarding the result-based payments. And the payments itself are faster. And you as a member state, basically, you can manage your cash flow and your cash flow needs. You can link the first payments with a milestone that are related with a process. So basically for the Estonia, it's a really good way to ease the pressure on a state budget. So we know that I think in general in Europe, all the states are a little bit struggling at the moment in terms of the money and spendings. So this has been a really good for us. And okay, one more extra thing. I think you are familiar with the N+3 rule. And I can say that the FNLC's payments actually will save us the N+3 rule and will save us the money in ERDF this time. So yeah. Okay, payments are faster because you can direct your cash flow, but there is also really high simplification potential at national level. So when we are speaking about result-based payments, at the moment we are speaking about them on an upper level, meaning Commission paying to the member state. But what will happen next? Whether you will apply the same payment methods at a lower level, at national level, or you don't. We see that it's really, if you want to really decrease the bureaucracy within the system, then you need to have the simplification throughout the system, meaning simplifications at all levels. And it really speeds up the implementation as well. So, but the simplification also depends a little bit on legal framework and whether it can be done on the national level or not. Because regarding the RRF, we actually wanted to use quite many simplification possibilities at lower level, but as the GBR, the state aid rules, initially didn't mention the RRF at all. So we couldn't apply simplified cost options in cases where the state aid was given. So I think regarding the new period, it's really important that the Commission looks all the horizontal legal acts and frameworks at the same time. So what more? RRF has shown us that really the ownership of the plans is really strong, and the ownership has shifted from administrative level or the implementation level to the really high political level. So RRF really is a priority, and achieving the goals is priority even for our Prime Minister, and I think it's the same in all countries. So, but I think from that point of view that you really have to achieve the goals and that the financial risks are really high, then it puts into the center the monitoring. So you really have to understand how good you are performing and doing, or are there any delays or are there any obstacles? And this has actually led developing to many new monitoring tools within and across the organizations. And our Power BI dashboards actually also came from that need. Maybe to end with a point that everything actually starts with the planning, and result-based planning really have to take into account all the stakeholders and expert knowledge and what you have, because we have seen that the up-down planning doesn't work here. So you really need to involve your stakeholders to the planning, because in the end they are the one who will deliver the results that are basis for your payments from the Commission side. And I think it's really, really important. So and they have to the political level has to take into account that the implementation model needs to support the deliveries. So otherwise, and I think it's also connected with making the grants more simple and easy to use. So, but yeah, I will end with that, and we can continue. Thank you.
Thank you. So she's the real busy bee of the model here. Thank you for a very, very inspirative insight. So, Federico, so what is your point of view?
Thank you, Clara. First of all, let me thank you for the invitation. I'm very happy to discuss these important themes in front of a specialized and engaged audience. So I'm bringing the perspective of DG Employment, so the perspective of European Social Fund and Social Fund Plus, of which we are currently terminating the evaluation. So Peter Berkowitze mentioned that the evaluations of the RDF have been published recently. Ours are a bit late, but are going to be released very, very soon. So I would like to start my intervention by reminding a bit which are the main innovations of this new framework for monitoring and evaluations that is included in the performance regulation for the new MFF. So it was mentioned earlier that this is a revolution, and it actually is, because as you know, we are going from separate performance frameworks for the different funding programs to a single performance framework, which will actually involve all funding instruments, including the national and regional plans. So first purpose of the Commission was the one of simplification and streamlining, and also to ensure that we have the capacity to aggregate data and results from different funding instruments in order to, let's say, bring up aggregate results. Talking more specifically about what currently is ESF and, let's say, the domain of cohesion policy. So the list of indicators that will be used for monitoring is simplified compared to the current period, and importantly, operations will only need to report on one output indicator, which is the one that actually is used for the payment. So this will bring to a stronger simplification compared to the current system. In our specific domain of ESF, we try to make also some fine-tuning. There are some results indicators that currently are difficult to collect, and they will no longer be required in the future framework. And also there is a better, let's say, monitoring framework for specific target groups like persons with disability, people from Roma communities, and so on, which at the moment are quite difficult to, I mean, these are sensitive data, as you know, so it's difficult to collect. And in the future, there will be specific intervention fields related to these activities. So in practice, the requirement will be only to collect indicators for operations that are targeted to these groups and not for all the operations, which currently is a bit of a challenge. So we also think that this will also bring up better communication to our stakeholders, both at national, regional, and EU level. And then there is the domain of evaluations. That is, let's say, changes are a bit fewer compared to the monitoring side. But still, there are important novelties. So, first of all, there is a specific requirement for conducting evaluations using quantitative methodologies when this is appropriate. This includes counterfactual impact evaluations and experimental design. This doesn't mean that all operations will need to be evaluated using these methods. There will be some flexibility, and of course, the managing authorities will have to present evaluation roadmaps, which correspond to the current evaluation plans, and specify what they wish to evaluate using these methods. But we believe this is important, that there is finally a legal basis that will actually require to carry out this kind of quantitative evaluations, which somehow would complement what is more theory-based qualitative evaluations that are normally carry out. And this requirement, very importantly, comes together with specific provisions on access to data. So one of the main concerns that we currently receive from our stakeholders is the difficulty in using administrative data for running evaluations. So the situation is very uneven across member states. Some of them have better access to administrative data sets. In some it is almost impossible. And this also depends on the interpretation of the general data provision regulation, but also on national provisions that in some cases actually prevent this use. So what the Commission has done in the proposal is to include specific provisions about certain categories of data that can be used for monitoring and evaluation purpose. And we believe that this will actually provide a legal basis to allow, let's say, the processing of data and the reuse of existing administrative data in respect of the GDPR. If this provision will survive the negotiations, as we hope, of course, we believe that this will improve a lot the access to data for monitoring and evaluation purpose. I don't know how much time I have yet.
You have to. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
A couple of things in terms of impacts. Now, one main element that I have already mentioned is that these indicators will be used not only for monitoring but also for triggering payments. So this is actually at the core of the performance-based system. And in that regard, I bring some experience that we have in DG Employment about financing not linked to costs. So there is an increasing use of financing not linked to costs in the ESF. And there is actually a specific work strand about using the current common indicators as indicators to be used in the FNLCs. This is something that is done by another unit of DG Employment in the context of a transnational network on simplification. But the first outcomes of this work strand are quite positive. So, because using common indicators ensures that there are established and clear definitions, that we can use historical data, which makes easier to set milestones and targets, and this also reduces somehow the audit risks that were mentioned earlier. This increases comparability across member states and so on. So we believe this is an important step forward to, let's say, make this performance-based system more operational in the future system. I think I can stop here for the moment. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So now we heard the point of view from the DG Employment, and now we will connect it with the point of view from DG REGIO. So Pascal.
Thank you, Clara, and good morning, everybody. Also, thank you very much for the invitation to participate at this important conference. Maybe a first disclaimer from my side. Despite my long experience in regional policy, I'm not an evaluation expert. I'm much more working in geographical units on the implementation of the funds of the ERDF Cohesion Fund and the JTF. So as said before, now for the Czech Republic and Slovakia. So my perspective and also my comments will be mainly from that perspective. So as I see myself more as an end user or a client of evaluation than really the one who is the expert in this domain. And if you ask me for the observations for what the new performance-based model will bring and what it will change from our point of view for the management and the monitoring of the programs, okay, some of the comments were already made, but repeating them from our perspective. First of all, the performance-based model will attach more importance to indicators and target setting. It's not that we were talking about a revolution. It's not that we were doing this in this program period and the previous program period, not at all. But okay, it will even be more a central part of program management in the future. And especially the fact that we will pay out on the basis of output indicators and payments will be triggered by this. this of course will have an important consequence for also negotiating programs. So are we setting the right targets for the output indicators? Are they ambitious enough? Are they realistic enough? Are they representative enough? I think that's a key element for us when I put myself already in the shoes for negotiating the new generation of chapters, if I can put it like that. And also a new element, of course, is that we will have more reform-based targets and indicators. So that also requires a new discipline, knowledge on how to see how we are going to set the right targets to measure reforms. So that's maybe my first observation. The second point, Federico said it already, the performance-based model was mainly set up for simplification, for streamlining. And I think this is a good thing because we have at the moment too many programs operating in parallel next to each other, partly overlapping, partly not overlapping. And I think everybody agrees, both on the member state side and the Commission side, that there's a need for further streamlining. So I think it's a good proposal within that context. So we have a much more streamlined and unified approach with a standard set of intervention codes, output indicators, result indicators, which are all interrelated. So this makes the whole approach much more consistent for all programs across Europe. And it also leads to more transparency. And I think also what was not mentioned yet, also our proposal to introduce a single gateway where you can have all the information available on one website about the performance of the programs, aggregation of data, which of course also makes it much better for us as Commission to communicate what we actually achieve with all these investments. So we still have the problem at this moment still to communicate clearly what all the programs together aggregated contribute. And I think also in this sense, the new performance framework hopefully will help to disseminate better and to explain better the impact of the investments of all the funds across Europe. Maybe a third comment I want to make is about the stronger link between, on one hand, setting the high objectives, political objectives at the level of EU and member states, and to have them combined through the European semester. And I think also I expect that the country-specific recommendations formulated for each country in agreement between the Commission and the member state will play a more important role in the future because they set the framework for, for designing the programs and also the measures under the NRPP. So I think it's really to see this link from all the way from top political objectives all the way down to operational measures and setting targets. I think this link will be much more strengthened in the future than it is right now. Maybe to give one example, and I'm sorry for the Czechs here, but we constantly come with the same comment from the side of the Commission when we speak about CSRs. One CSR which we repeat since several years in the Czech Republic is the use and the uptake of financial instruments, where the Czech Republic is unfortunately lagging behind the EU average. Clearly this is formulated in the country-specific recommendation. You as a member state picked this up quite well, I think, and especially compliments again for the Ministry for Regional Development and the National Coordinating Authority to do analysis, maybe not evaluations, but also especially analysis on what is the state of progress at this moment and how it can be further improved. And really operational measures which have been translated into now an increased proposal for financial instruments still in this program period and hopefully also for the next program period. So I think this is a good way to explain how the link goes from European semester, country-specific recommendations to operational measures. Fourth comment, which was already mentioned by Peter Berkowitze in his introduction, the quality of data and the reliability on data will play a key role. If we are going to take this performance-based model as our key tool, then of course data and the quality of data will be crucial. And I would like to add also from our side, from the operational side, the timely availability of data. Very often good evaluations are carried out, but the results come too late to introduce them into the next phase of programming. And especially again, also as he mentioned, the importance of microdata, so that we can really, and as you mentioned also Federico, the link to the GDPR, that we can really use the smallest data at the level of beneficiaries, or also when we speak about coming from REGIO for addressing specific regional needs, even below NUTS 3 level. It's important to have the relevant, important microdata. And my last comment is about, my fifth comment is about the importance of good governance and administrative capacity building. The whole performance-based culture requires also the right skill set, the right mindset. The State Secretary spoke about how important it is to have enough capacity in place and to have also the right skills and the openness in place. I think, first of all, when we start working with new technologies like experimentation or use of artificial intelligence, this requires, again, also new development of skills and strengthening the administrative capacity. I think I can say that we have now a very good evaluation culture within the Czech Republic in the different administrations. There's good in-house capacity available in the different ministries, but this took a while. It's not something which you build overnight. This took a while from program period to see how this capacity has been further strengthened. And I think good governance, which also will get more attention in the next program period, but also for evaluation, it's crucial to keep on building and training ourselves to work with these new methodologies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pascal. So we heard. We heard the view from the Estonia. We heard both the views of DG Employment and DG REGIO. And now we would like to hear the point of view from the Czech Republic. So Standa, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Clara. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, much has been said until now. I try to be brief, but explain to you my approach to evaluations and the topic of today. I'm definitely not an evaluation expert, as it was said by Pascal already. But I know after my experience that the key for strategic decision-making on the topest level, top decision makers, is to know what happens now, what happened in the past, and what are the main trends and what is at stake around me. I spend some time also in corporate sector, and they call it in a little bit different language, business intelligence. It's like evaluators in public administration, and these people are becoming more and more important for any companies, for any institutions, because they are trend evaluators. They can tell the hierarchy how the decision should be made with knowing what are the main trends. And it's also about people and culture, cultural mindset shift. About people, when I came to the ministry almost 3 years ago, I knew that there is a section with different units, and I knew that there is some revolution coming in the draft regulations. So I split it, some departments, I restructured a section, and I linked more closely evaluators and analysts with the people who are in charge now in shaping the future structure in the Czech Republic, national and regional partnership plan. It's actually Clara, the moderator here, the head of this department. And also there is Jana Delíková, head of evaluation unit, and they have quite close cooperation together, because when we shape the future, we have to know our best practices, even worst practices, and lessons learned. And it works. I hope it's gonna work in future, and it's one of the pillars in building the future national and regional partnership plan. About culture of learning and adaptation in the section in the ministry, it's day-to-day life. It's it's our cooperation. So again, it's about the people, and let's not be afraid of the revolutions. I know that there is a lot of examples in history where revolution led to some difficulties, like very slightly said. But this revolution in the draft regulations for 28+, it's a huge window of opportunity to simplify many elements of regulatory framework. And I would put it like that in the first round of discussion, and we'll be ready to put some examples later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, a couple of you mentioned that you are not an expert for evaluation, so neither am I. And actually, I think that's good. The point is not to go too deep into the detail, but to combine it with the reality and with the real space. So I really appreciate that we have got the point of view from the real worker of the subject itself, and also we've now heard the point of view from the real decision maker. So how you can really combine the evaluation, how to change it, and combine it with the NRPP in this case, but to bring it to the practice. So I hope this is going to be interesting even for you, that we are not going to be stick just to the evaluation, like the methods, but also to combine it with the real practice. Speaking of that, it brings me to my other question, and that's how can the new performance framework help align the national priorities with the EU objectives? So, and now at this point, I would perhaps start with the European Commission, perhaps with Pascal or Federico. So, do you see any room for helping aligning the national priorities with EU objectives that's connected with the performance framework?
Thank you for giving the floor again. Yeah, I already mentioned it a bit in my introduction. I think one of the points how we can align better the performance framework and how it can help to set the national and EU objectives. For me, the key tool there is what I said, is the European semester and the country-specific recommendations. So I think the way I see it, or the way I understand it, the country-specific recommendations is an agreement between the Commission and the member state on what should be the priorities which should be addressed in the coming period, and they would also set the framework then for the NRPP. And I think it would be a good tool also to help to focus the investments, because in several member states, also like the Czech Republic, the budget will not increase. It's more the opposite. The budget might decrease, the available budget. So there's even a stronger push for prioritizing the investments. And I think, again, there, the evaluations can help to see, and also Peter Berkowitze mentioned this already in methodologies, and he said also one of the results of the ex post evaluations is that overall cohesion policy has been very effective. It helped to contribute to increase of GDP per capita and employment, but the overall results were not everywhere proportionate. There's some areas clearly where the investments were much more effective than others. So I think there also the performance-based framework and results evaluations can help to see what are the key areas we should invest in each country, different of course, according to the situation, but to help to make clear choices. And I think there, that I think would be the most important tool for added value also of the performance-based framework. So how to make clear choices and how to prioritize measures. Yeah, and I think that I think is the most important added value in this context.
Thank you. So is there something you would like to add, Federico?
Actually, my thinking is very much in line with what Pascal said. So the European semester will definitely increase even more its role of a guide, and of course it has the value added of having, let's say, challenges and country-specific recommendations, let's say, agreed between the Commission and the Member States. Now, more specifically on the monitoring and evaluation side, I think the fact of having a single performance framework will help very much tracking the entire budget and its linkage to specific objectives. So you may have seen that in the proposal there are coefficients that are related to the intervention fields and specific objectives, which is climate change adaptation, climate change mitigation, biodiversity, and more specifically for our domain, the social objectives. So we will be able to track how much of the spending is related to social objectives. And so, you know, in the proposal, there is a target of 14% of social spending under the national and regional partnership plans. So definitely this is something that will ensure a better focusing of the plans toward certain priorities. You know, there are no thematic concentration in the future framework, but this system will allow some tracking. And I would also like to mention something related to the evaluation. So as also Peter said before, we really expect that we could move to a system where evaluations are carried out earlier on in the process. So they are not only, let's say, an instrument to measure the accountability of the measures, but also, let's say, provide a closer input to the management of the programs. And this is also why we are, let's say, encouraging the use of experimental design and randomized control trials, which is something we are currently piloting with the World Bank in a number of member states. We would like this to, let's say, be more prominent in the next programs, and of course, with this analysis earlier on what does work and what does not work, let's say, help driving the programs towards certain priorities that are more relevant at national and EU level.
Thank you. So, Standa, we've heard a couple of remarks, like from Pascal, the point of view that we need to prioritize the financial instruments, CSR, and then Federico mentioned the social priorities and the move from concentration to tracking. So, how does it? How do we react in the Czech Republic to those priorities?
Well, so we discussed in the huge partnership process the strategic framework of EU, so-called, I would call it, development priorities of the Czech Republic, and it was a huge lesson of consultation and trying to prioritize. It was a pilot of draft NRPP discussions, when we learned a lot that there is still a culture of EU funds, like they are for free, they are for granted, they are unlimited in the amount, and everybody was like, I need to finance energy infrastructure, I need to finance fast trains infrastructure with billions and billions of crowns of absorption capacity. And it was really fascinating exercise for all of us in the team to go through this discussion. And I understood that there is still a need to communicate this revolution, this new draft regulations, that it's really a huge cultural change in the heads of everybody in implementation system. starting from the managing authorities, from coordination authority, from paying authority, to final beneficiaries and to everybody. It's really after 20 years. It's not only the slight change in direction, but it's a completely different track. And so first it's about communication. Second, it's about from the first time to speak with the controllers and auditors, to have them on board, to explain them that let's start mutual trust among us, among managing authorities, among final beneficiaries, about auditors, controllers. Let's use the simplified cost options and other methods. Let's trust each other. It's so simple, this message. We have 20 years of experience using the EU fund money, and now we are like a front leaders in the front of the whole EU. So we have something to be proud of in the past. It's not only my work, it's work of my predecessors and cultivation of the whole system. However, we are at the stage we have a lot of lessons learned. We have discussion trying to formulate priorities for 28 plus. Of course, we have also elections now and new government coming, but we at expert level, we have to follow discussion on EU level and to go on and to not lose the time these 2 crucial years in the negotiations, because if there is 1st January of 28 a starting point for using the new programming period money, we have just like two years, and we have to consult with everybody. So my appeal is really trust each other. Let's cooperate on that. Let's have in mind every day red tape. If I do some decision, what does it bring in the administrative costs? Is it really necessary, these papers? Is it possible to use new technologies for that? For evaluators in day-to-day management, the question is, I need in 1 week some summary in 2-3 sentences for my hierarchy. I don't have 3, 5, 7, 8, 10 years. Of course, I like to read ex post evaluation 1420, but sometimes it's like reading, ancient books, and there are lessons, to learn, but sometimes the world is so quick that I need to decide now in 1 week, let's say, on the basis of the most useful data interpretation. So that's it.
So trust is the way. Siret, we heard from Federico that it's kind of revolution, and there is a will to simplify the whole processes. So because you are very advanced, very experienced than the Czech Republic in this area, perhaps what advice would you provide to us? What steps can be taken to ensure that the performance framework leads to the real improvements at the local level, rather than remaining to just a formal exercise?
Oh, what a question. So, maybe I will comment a bit those country-specific recommendations as well. And I don't know who was the one who came up with the idea to link all the reforms and investments with country-specific recommendations by the Commission side, but he or she was a really clever one, because I think this is the key point of really aligning the national priorities and EU goals. And it has shown that, I think there is even a saying that when the Commission was a dog who parked, like, whoa, when the countries didn't fulfilled their recommendations. Then now it has shown that this dog also have a teeth and it can bite quite strongly, because when you don't fulfill your milestones and targets, then the punishments are quite strong for the member states. And I would like to point out that it's when we bring in the reforms, then of course it's really important that the reforms are relevant for both for the EU and for the national level and governance as well, but it really has to be flexible, and the member states have to have a word in or say in what kind of reforms will be included. And in regarding the RRF, we have seen that when we change our national plans and when we take out some investments, then Commission is really straight. You cannot take out the reforms, or you cannot change the reforms. So with the reforms, they are so strict. But I think in the new programming period, it's really important that if you as a member state will amend one of those, then the other part needs to be amended as well, or there needs to be a flexibility in this. And I'm not sure how good idea is it to cover all the country-specific recommendations in the national plans and all the intervention fields, because maybe this brings down the level of flexibility and makes the system a bit rigid. But yeah, but okay, now how can we do that the results are really seen in the local level? Or I think everything needs to start with the planning, as I said in my opening statement, because if you have, and when the results are the center part of everything, so you basically make you make visible the results, and I think RRF here is much more concrete. For example, when we take the our RRF investments, we know how much there will be trained persons, how many of those have achieved the qualification, how much SMEs we are supporting, how many CO2 tons we are reducting. And so I think the results are so clear and visible, and it also helps to bring more focus even on soft investments. Not only, I think on a local level, usually what is really well seen are the big investments into I don't know, building houses or roads. So these are really visible. But yeah, when you make the visible soft results also visible, I think it's good. But yeah, I would say that budget is always limited, and with those result-based financing, I think, and with the clear results, you really have to think where do you direct the money, because you need to put the money in the interventions where you can really see the measurable results. And I would say that the cost-based approaches are quite rigid, and they are really tied to predefined activities. So basically, I think even Peter told in his presentation that the result-based approaches will be much more flexible in terms of eligible activities. So there are fewer rules, and basically with a result-based approach, you have to know your end. You know your starting point, and you have to know the end point. But the way you are going to the end point can be really up to you, and you can design the way of being on the way. So you can go directly from point A to point B, or you can go in circles, or you can take, let's take a serpentine or zigzag. So basically, it really makes everything much more flexible. So yeah, but we have to be we have to be a little bit cautious. I think you mentioned that you like the member states to have really ambitious milestones and targets, and we have to be, which are realistic. But yeah, but with the RRF, we see that actually those member states that were ambitious, they are being punished, and those that were conservative, they are like they are in court in terms of the implementations and getting the money from the Commission. So I think this mindset needs to be reversed, and ambition isn't something that should be punished, but vice versa, it should be like encouraged somehow. But yeah, I think these are the.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you very much, Siret. And now let me turn to you, to your audience. So we've got very, very inspirative speakers here. So please feel free to ask the question, to share any ideas you have. Yeah.
Okay, this one works. My name is Vladimir Kvacha. I'm one of Clara's predecessors. Some 15 years ago, I was for quite an intensive time involved in the community of practice on results-based management, together with my dear friend Benedict Wouters, who currently leads the ESF in Flanders. And I was really delighted by Standa for mentioning the topic of trust, because I believe, especially when dealing in complex systems, we need trust. So it brings my, I would say, eternal question to European regulations: which are the provisions that are aimed on trust building? Because typically I see provisions linked to control. So I would like first question to ask the colleagues from the Commission, in your opinion, which are the strongest provision in the proposal of the new regulation that are aimed on trust building within the system? And then I have a second question that links probably to the idea of learning and quality of data. Because I think already in the 70s, which means some 50 years ago, there was in the social science established a term that is called Goodhart's law, that briefly says once a measure, meaning an indicator, becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure because of some corrective pressures. Because once a target is incentivized heavily, like with money, to be achieved, people will behave strangely. There are in academic literature described like mechanisms of gaming, parking, creaming. So we will help almost only those who are easy to serve to fulfill the numbers. And we will park those difficult elsewhere. We will play with the numbers, which ultimately leads to the conclusion already well established in the academic literature that data that you used for control purposes cannot be trusted and therefore cannot be used for learning purposes, which has quite terrible implications to evaluation. So my question to all of you probably is, how do you see the countermeasures of these effects that are described for decades in the literature once you start to play with incentivized targets, that gaming, parking, and other perverse incentives will start to deform the reality? So what are the lessons learned on the side of the Commission, but also on the side of the Member States against these things that will likely happen if we will use the performance framework as it is planned. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So maybe let's start with the second question first. So the lessons learned both from the side of the European Commission.
Maybe I can start and comment really fast this second issue that we are how to avoid cherry picking, creaming, camming. I think this is something that even RRF academic literatures and studies have brought out, and there are some member states in whose plan it's really seen that they are doing something that is really easy to achieve, or basically doesn't have any impact in terms of the, wanting to have some impact. So what we see, or what is my opinion, is everything needs to, as I mentioned already, the planning really has to start from the lowest part and has to take into account all the stakeholders and the experts' advice. And regarding the implementation, there needs to be flexibility. Otherwise, we are afraid of being too ambitious or really dealing the things that cannot, or maybe even do some kind of innovative things, because with the innovation, we don't know where we end up. We can even fail, but even this should be encouraged within the performance framework. So I think flexibility is the key, how to avoid these kind of things, because otherwise when you have only hard punishments, not achieving those, then I think it's even wise to be a little bit conservative. But I will let the others to comment other questions.
Thank you. I think you brought up a very important point. The Goodall's law is quite a known phenomenon in the economic literature. So indeed, this is a thing. Now, I may be tempted to say that because we trust the authorities in a shared management system, this would somehow prevent, but this is a bit provocative, okay, of course. Now, if I may, this is where the role of evaluations should step in, because obviously you may say, okay, I have a target, reach the target, payment is triggered, but then you want to know why this target is reached, how it was reached, whether it could have been reached faster, for instance, or whether, as you say, some mechanisms were put in place to reach it faster than it should have been. So this is something that the evaluation should look at, in my view. So it's somehow complementing the two things, in my perspective.
Maybe on your first question, and I think these are really valid points you bring up, where there's not easy answers possible. But maybe, again, also maybe a provocative reaction to your comment. If you would have to regulate trust building in the regulation, that for me would be already a sign that there's not a basis of trust. So, I mean, to regulate trust building, I don't think you can regulate trust building. It's something which is in the culture as such. Yeah, and exactly a system that supports it, I agree. But I think when you ask about provisions, I don't have the regulation now, of course, by heart, but I think some of the elements which contribute to the trust building, of course, as we always underline, the partnership principle, and it's not only the partnership between the Commission and the Member State, but also the partnership within the Member State. There it's important to keep all the relevant partners, national, regional, local, but also the business partners, social partners, NGOs being around the table. The more they are involved from the very beginning, the more they are involved in the programming, the more they feel committed, the better trust you have under the base of the program and the more commitment you have during the implementation. I know it's a relatively conceptual answer, but I think that's the way we see it. So I would say the partnership principle should lead for the trust building. So the fact that we insist that all the partners are sufficiently represented, and you could see in the latest discussions, in the latest proposal from the Commission over the weekend towards the Parliament, which again, on insisting from the Parliament, these texts are being even more strengthened now, and hopefully that leads to trust building. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Not easy questions, but thank you for that. On disincentivizing targets, perverse. Well, I'm mission-based guy. It means that for me it's important to see my KPIs, my mission, which is limited in time. If I fill all the KPIs preset before, I'm happy. I'm personally happy, not because of my hierarchy. I feel quite well if if this is the indication I do my job well. But on the other hand, I push the culture of mistakes. Mistake is natural, making mistakes, but repeating mistake is deficiency. So that's maybe one of the points how to work with this result-based or performance-based approach. And one with philosophical questions. If you see the US political system, it's about checks and balances, and here we have checks built in the regulations, but what are the balances? I don't have the reply now, but let's think about the more balances than checks inside the regulations. Thank you.
Well, whenever I hear the topic of trust, I need to remember the Commissioner Oettinger when he was asked the question on the conference. So he replied, trust, it's a good thing. Better is control. But guys, the best is double control. So I'm quite happy it doesn't go like triple, multiple, so. Ladies and gentlemen, at this moment, let me deeply thank to our speakers, because it was really very, very inspirative. Thank you, all our guests. And now let me invite you for a short coffee break. And we will then meet at 11:15, and we will start with a very controversial topic, convergence against competitiveness. So, see you then.